Today we play golf.
Let me show you how we do it in the pros.
Welcome to Behind the Golf Brand Podcast.
I never miss with the 7-iron.
A conversation with some of the most interesting innovators and entrepreneurs behind the biggest names in golf.
My friends with the golf clubs. I lived on the golf course. I lived on the driving range.
From pro talk.
You should learn something from each and every single round you play.
To fun from on and off the green.
Why would you play golf if you don't play it for money?
Just let me put the ball in the hole.
This is Behind the Golf Brand Podcast with Paul Liberatore.
What's up, guys? Paul from Golfers Authority. Welcome to the Behind the Golf Brand Podcast, episode 64, which I can't believe. It's crazy. We're winding up the end of the year on the show, and I'm really excited to have my friend Chris Somerton from Lyle and Scott. These guys are cool as hell, and they've been around forever, and I love fashion. I love British fashion, actually. So, I'm really excited to have them on the show to learn more about what they're doing and what's coming out for next year. And just their history, because I love old British fashion history, like Penfold, all of these guys. I don't know. I think it's really that's the roots of this game, right? So, without further ado, Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Paul. Pleasure to be here. Yeah, and excited to let you all know about what's happening at Lyle and Scott, what we've been up to, what's coming next.
Okay, here we go. We're gonna play a game. It's called "What's Your Story." So, really, what I want to find out is how'd you get into golf? Are you a golfer? Are you a fashion person? What's the story?
I came to golf through the really technical side. So I went to university to study engineering and specifically the design of sports equipment.
Really?
Yeah. So
are you an engineer?
Yeah. So that's my qualification. And as I kind of moved through that, you got to specialize more in different sports. And we had in the facility that I worked in, a giant robot that swung a golf club and a giant robot that fired golf balls really far.
Like an Iron Byron?
Exactly.
Those are effing expensive, man. Those are
they're so cool. And I looked at
$500,000. I've always wanted one. I think it'd be cool. If you're doing real testing, that's what you need, not some dude hitting in a cage.
Exactly. So I looked at those and I'm like, well, I just want to use those all the time. And from there, I just fell in love with how much you can apply science to the game. All the engineering principles that can go into designing a building or a car can be applied in golf. And I found it fascinating and kind of fell in love with it there. So I went into equipment design on the hardware side. So I went and joined a hardware manufacturer based here in the UK. And kind of that was my route into the golf industry.
Were you a player before? Were you playing golf just for fun or whatever?
I had, a real passing interest. I would go to the driving range a couple of times a year. But as soon as I started kind of that journey into golf, I was playing all the time. And in my previous role at that hardware manufacturer, I was playing kind of 3 or 4 times a week. Not very well at all, but it was certainly more regular.
Where did you grow up? England?
Yeah, so I grew up in the southwest of England in a place called Gloucester, and then moved to London when I started that job straight out of university. So I've been in and around London for pretty much the last 10 years now.
All right, so you grew up in Gloucester, and then you just play for fun, whatever, like everybody else. And then so you went to school to be an engineer. Did you want to go into sports engineering stuff, or is it more you were just going into mechanical engineering or something?
Yeah, I always wanted it to have a sports focus. I basically had 2 routes in life, and they could have been very different. I only applied to do one thing at one university, which was this very specialized degree course in sports equipment engineering. If it hadn't have been that, I would have been a carpenter. So really, different routes in life, and one of them's worked out. And I would still like to do some carpentry, perhaps later in life, but found this kind of specialized niche of sports equipment design and engineering, and particularly golf within that. And that's how I fell in love with it.
How'd you get into fashion then?
So I blagged a job, basically. So I used to do kind of product development in my old role, but for golf clubs, so hardware.
For who?
It was vacancy advertised here for a product developer, which on paper sounded very similar to what I was doing at the other company. And then got through an interview, talked about golf a lot, had a good conversation with the guy that was interviewing me, arrived here and realized I just knew absolutely nothing about what was happening here. I look at the product development team who sit downstairs and they are infinitely more knowledgeable about it than I ever was. I got imposter syndrome to the max because I literally didn't know the words they were saying, what anything meant. like jersey. I didn't know what that was. Like, I've learned a lot since over the last kind of.
That's a British word, man. You need to like say some English words, like shirt.
It was kind of that basic, but we muddled through. And so I did that for about a year, and that was kind of my introduction into the world of fashion and specifically golf fashion.
Was it Lyle and Scott? That's who it was. So then before Lyle and Scott, where were you? Were you working at like? Yeah, I was at a company like
a UK hardware manufacturer called Ben Ross, and we also had the distribution for Bridgestone golf balls in the UK.
Oh shit! So it's like a big distributor who also makes stuff. There's lots of those. I've learned that.
Exactly.
That's the thing's really weird about golf. There's a lot of distributors that do that. Like, what is Ben Ross? Is that like a corporation or is that a privately held company?
Oh, family-owned company for.
Dude, they're all like that, man.
Yeah.
It's so weird. I've learned that lately, and it blows my mind because like in the last year I've realized that, like, some of the biggest players are closely held family companies that have like 7 or 8 huge brands under them that they're the main distributor for, and you're like, I would never have known that in a million years, right?
It's
like
crazy. Yeah.
It's crazy. Like, they're all like not big corporations. I don't know. There's like at least 3 I can think of off the top of my mind.
Like even Lyle and Scott, we're owned by one person. Like,
really?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll get to that in a minute. So then when you were at the other company, you were doing like design work, or what were you doing?
Yeah, so literally everything, the whole product story from sketches onto a page to making sure it was delivered into the warehouses to customers all the way through.
You're talented at drawing stuff. That's okay, because you're like, I could have been a carpenter. Well, yeah, it's like you're just designing, right? You're like figuring it out, making it look cool. Like that's the carpenter, just the wood and a house. Yeah.
It's it's product ownership from start to finish, which is what I like.
That's really cool.
It's what we get to do here.
So okay, so then you go to Lyle and Scott, and you're like, oh yeah, man, I know golf real well, and they like interview you, and you're like, oh crap. Did you think you didn't get the job when you first interviewed?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't that hopeful. I came in and I was like, oh, this is like, it was the opposite end to what I'd been used to. So
did you interview with Lyle or Scott? Just kidding. I can't
remember which one it was, but it was a nice guy called Tom. Actually, I do remember it well. Actually, the second stage. So I met the director for that part of the business at that time, and then the second stage, I came back for an interview with the CEO, and he put me at ease because he said, "Well, to get to this stage, you must be technically good enough to get the job." But I turned up as a inexperienced, what would I have been, maybe 22 or 23-year-old. I was still wearing a suit that didn't really fit very well. I turned up.
Get over it, Lyle. I bought the suit through you guys.
No,
I'm a competitor.
I accidentally wore a competitor's shirt, which I don't think they realised. At least they haven't told me yet. But that was a big.
They know now.
There it is. It's all out now. But I turned up wearing this like kind of grey suit that kind of washed me out. Didn't look very good. And the CEO, we spoke for about 5 minutes, and he said, "Look, you're obviously good enough to do the job. That's fine, but I think you're quite boring." So he went and picked 2 people out of the office, and he sent us to the pub for the afternoon. And he said, they're going to come back, and if they say you're fun over a drink, then you can come and have a job with us. And here I am 4 years later.
You're a story. You're a true story.
Please.
All right. So like, I used to be a pilot before I was a lawyer, and like, so I was going to go in the military and fly fighter jets. Like, this is like post 9/11, right? So I was interviewed for a squadron, and they did the same freaking thing. Because like, I went to this interview, and it was like I felt completely. It was there's an airplane called an A-10 Warthog. It like, I don't know what that is, but like, it's like super low to the ground, and it like blows up tanks, right? So like, I went to squadron, do an interview, and so like, it was a 3-day interview. And they did the same thing because like it was like, first of all, you already were qualified to even make the interview, right?
Yeah.
You don't know that when you're young. You're like, whoa, And I mean, there's always like fighter pilots there. I'm not a fighter pilot or anything. I was like a normal pilot guy trying to get a job. So like, I was like, well, at least I got past the first hurdle. But the actual interview process is exactly the same way. It was more like, can you hang? Are you fun to get drunk with? How competitive are you? And can you hang? That's it. That's a whole interview. And that's why it took so long. And like, I could hang, but there was like 15 of us, 20 of us, and there's only one position. So I was like, all right, fine. But it's the exact same thing, because they told me at the end of the interview, my buddy was in the squadron. He goes, look, dude, we got to hang out with you in a tent in the middle of nowhere for a year. You have to be somebody we like. Like, that's all this is about. And it's like, wow. But the same thing they did to you. That tells you how good of CEO he is, because It's all that mattered, right? Whether or not you're going to
Yeah.
fit in. Not like, oh, can he do his job? Like, anybody can do the job. I mean, if you're on paper, right? But like, is he cool? Can he hang? Does he get it? You know, that's awesome. That's the first time I've ever heard that. That's a very good way of interviewing people.
Yeah,
off
and
the cuff.
we do the same now, really, for everybody. It's there's an
You probably do that
assumed
every
level-
day after work. You just get smashed at a pub. You're like, oh yeah, we're interviewing.
We do some work in between it, but yeah,
No, you
pretty
don't.
much.
No lies.
You're right.
Okay. You're like drawing on the back of a pub napkin. So, so then you obviously passed the test, right?
Somehow, yeah.
You lied your way through it. Just kidding.
They believed it, so it didn't matter.
Okay, so you get the job. How long have you been there? Like, when did you start?
So I've been here for just over 3 years now. I started in October of 2018.
Were you coming on board only to do golf fashion or all
Golf.
types of fashion?
Golf and our sportswear collection at that time.
What's the story with Lyle and Scott? Like, tell me the history, because they've been around for like a million years, right? Like,
Yeah, we've been
not a
around
million
for
years, but like they've been around for a really long time. They're an established British apparel company. So what's the story with them?
Yeah, so we are old. We were established in September of 1874. So we are 147 years old. We've seen a lot of things come and go. It's things have changed a
Lots
lot.
of kings and queens.
Literally,
Wars.
Regime changes, everything. So we were founded in this tiny little town in the Scottish borders called Hawick, which is about an hour and a half south of Edinburgh.
So you're
we're
right
still
on the
based-
border, huh?
Yeah, we're still based in that town, so we still have an operation up in
How
that
cool
same
is
town
that?
all those years later. We now have a presence in London as well, so we do like our showrooms, and the majority of our kind of office staff work in London. So we're across those two sites, split across the two. But we've done loads of stuff in that 147 years. We started out as a manufacturer. So we were making knitwear, and particularly we started off making underwear, so like silk and woolen underwear. We had the license for Y fronts around the Second World War. And then we kind of moved into fashion, men's and women's. So we did some collaborations with Christian Dior in the 50s and 60s, and then really focused on manufacturing knitwear around that time. And that's what took us into golf. So in kind of the early 60s, we really started to press into golf after the two guys running the company at that time went to the Open and kind of realized there was an opportunity for a Scottish and British brand to really kind of apply themselves to golf. And that's how we started our journey into the world of golf all those years ago, 70, 80 years ago into golf.
I guess my first question is then, when you came on board, what are they looking to like what were they doing with the golf, like in terms of clothing? Was it more like just the polo shirts like everybody else, or they're trying to come more like the outerwear, like now it's more like athleisure, casual, but still golf, you know what I mean? Like, is that somewhere they're kind of moving in that direction, or were they already kind of doing that 3 or 4 years ago?
Yeah, it was a start of kind of renewed focus on golf, really. So we've been in golf for a really long time, 75 odd years. But over the last kind of 15 to 20, we probably haven't focused on it as much as we could or should have done. We had the fashion side of our business that was really exploding. Kind of around the early 2000s, it really kicked off around the independent music scene in London. So bands like the Arctic Monkeys and the Libertines kind of adopted.
Oh, really? Oh, that's cool as hell.
And we exploded as a result on the fashion side. And that's kind of where the focus went. Golf took a bit of a backseat. But we decided as a company, what's the thing that makes us unique, really? And we felt it was our history and heritage in golf. Like we've dressed the best players in the game. Greg Norman won the Open wearing Lyle Scott. Jack Nicklaus has worn us in the Open. These icons of the game are a really important part of our kind of brand history. So we wanted to give it the focus and attention that it needs and make it really important to us again. And that kind of started around the time I came in to the company about 3 years ago, and has had a kind of real emphasis in the last kind of 6 months to a year. We're building the golf team. We're expanding into the USA. We're building kind of our global business around golf. And yeah, we're going to go back.
Golf's blowing up, man.
Yeah, we're going to go back to being one of the most influential golf fashion brands. It's what we were before, so we're going to go back to that position.
Well, here's what's cool I think about you guys. Like, first of all, like your designs are pretty sick. They're very classy and but they're still like modern. That makes sense. Like, you know, and the price point is not like crazy high. Like I've seen some other brands are like, you know, $500-$600 for whatever, like a jacket. But like, you know, it's affordable, but it's like you get what you pay for. You know what I mean? So it's like, and I love your logo. Your logo's badass, dude. Like seriously, that's like the most iconic looking logo. I don't know. You could tell you guys already are a fashion brand, right? Like what happens is you get brands that come in, they're not a fashion brand. Other guys are like, oh, I'm gonna start a fashion company in golf, and then they have to create a brand. They don't have the, I don't know what's the word, like background to actually create something nice. You know what I mean? It looks like some guy's making it in his garage or something. But I mean, that's what when I first saw your catalog this year, I was like, oh, it's sick. You know, and so I think it's really cool what you guys are doing. So right now, then, are you focusing mainly on like the winter gear because it's winter, or like you starting to prepare for the spring?
I've got fingers in about 5 different seasons at this point in time. So we are about to launch our high summer collection, which is what we like in the fashion world we'd call it autumn winter. In golf, we kind of move away from that terminology because certainly in the UK and Europe, autumn winter is snowy and cold, and the golf courses are closed. So we position it as high summer, and it's a bit more colourful and designed for warm weather than our autumn winter collection would be. So we're about to launch that for 2022 to our kind of agents, distributors, go out and sell it into the market. But the range that's about to launch to a consumer level is spring summer 22, and that goes live January 1st.
January 1st?
Yeah.
Whoa, so you're busy as hell.
Keeps us busy.
So how far out do you have to prepare for stuff? Is it like 6 months, a year when you guys come up with designs, or what?
So we've just signed off on the designs for spring summer 23, so that's January 23.
Holy, a year and a half from now?
If anything, that's probably not far enough in advance anymore.
Really?
You know, when the world was normal, that was probably about enough time. But the pressures of everything that's happening in the world at the moment means that everything takes so much longer than it normally would. And 18 months is probably the minimum you need to do it. When I know, it's a luxury to be able to work that far in advance and, have stuff in the pipeline to allow you to work that far in advance. But when I see, brands trying to launch a season ahead, it's so difficult to do things on that tighter turnaround. If one thing goes wrong, you're then really struggling. And that's the fear I have for when you see newer brands or smaller brands coming on the market, that I hope they can get through those kind of initial seasons where you're kind of working and living season to season, and you're not able to get that far ahead. Because we'd be working.
I've seen that with a lot of brands. I'm not gonna name people that are smaller brands that I've worked with, but like I've seen that where they're like, they're doing a phenomenal job, but it's like they're running around trying to get shit done at like all the time. You know what I mean? Like, oh, we have to get all of our pants from the so-and-so, and we make them only here. And I mean, they're not even like an overseas, like getting them made like in Europe or Asia or like a European, it's just like, holy crap. Like that's what's so crazy about apparel, right? Like you have to plan so far in advance, right? Like what's it going to look like? How will it even sell? You don't even know if it's going to sell or not. Now you got to get a ton of them made, right? Then you got to get them out to your buyers, right? Try to sell them out to the buyers, and then they buy them, and then you got to deliver them, and they may or may not even sell. And you're planning stuff a year and a half in advance. Like a year and a half ago, we didn't even have COVID, right? Like this is even on the radar. And I didn't really,
knows what,
I know it was lean for a couple. I know like one of the brands I worked with is a very big apparel company, and they said they like had to lay off everybody, dude, except for like the vice president. Like I was the only guy I was talking to at this point. Like the head guy, all the brands. He's like, I'm the only person doing this right now. I lost my entire team. I was like, holy crap, Now they're back to work now, but they're still behind. So it's like I just couldn't imagine the stress. That's crazy that far out in advance. I mean, because that's the kind of hard part, right? It's like moving the Titanic. It's like when you're a big company and you're coming that far ahead, you got to plan for that far ahead. If you're a smaller brand who's not doing apparel, apparel's hard as hell. Let me say my opinion on apparel. Apparel's hard, extremely hard, because like I tried doing that. It's hard as hell. Like if you know what you're doing, don't even compete. That's what I've learned. Like just don't.
It is hard to do, and I think it's hard to do at scale as well. So you can definitely create something that's really cool and interesting, but are you going to be able to make and sell enough of it to be able to grow your business so you can buy yourself more time? And then,
you have to put out so much capital too, right? Like And there's
If
no
you
guarantee you're going to
think-
sell it. Like, it doesn't matter
No.
what you buy it at. It's like,
that spring summer range, if we're designing it now, so you've got the time and energy going into designing, we're paying people to do that. We have to go and pay for it. Waits probably realistically 6 months before we get it. We send it to a customer. They then sell it, and then they pay it for us. You're talking probably a year to get back any of the money that we paid out for it.
it's a huge risk, but it's also a huge reward. But but that's the gamble. It's a huge gamble, and it's all apparel. That's not just with golf. I didn't know any of this stuff until I started being in this world, and I was like, holy crap! Like, even you saying them, it just blows my mind. Like, there's so much capital being spent, and you don't even know if you're gonna be able to sell it. I mean, I'm not saying you guys are not gonna be able to sell it, but like, you guys can figure that out. But like a new brand, they have no idea. They're nobody. And they think, oh, I'll figure it out. Okay, I'm gonna make some really cool shirts or whatever, right? And then say, okay, go. You spend a bunch of money on shirts. Now you have them sitting in your garage or whatever, new startup, and then now you gotta sell them. And guess what? No one knows who you are. You gotta pay for ads, like all this crap. But again, once we're back, nobody knows who you are. So you're already coming out with, oh wow. Are you guys going to the PGA show then this year?
We are. So yeah, PGA show in January 2022. We'll be launching our High Summer 22 collection. So that'll be the first range that is available in the USA. So at the moment, we don't really do anything as a brand on the fashion side or golf or sports into the USA, but we're launching into the USA with golf. With High Summer 22, so July of 2022.
So it's like the big launch for you guys to come to the United States and
Massive,
like show, hey, we're here to play, right?
Absolutely,
like,
yeah.
What did you guys have to do last year when there was or this year, I guess? You guys just stayed in Europe then, in England?
The pandemic was a strange one for golf. We were probably the only sport that benefited. It's obviously very difficult, and golf retail in particular was hard because it was closed for a long period of time, and on-course retailers are entirely reliant on their footfall. Normally they don't have a digital presence, so they need their members there playing in order to sell things. And so for the periods of time, certainly here in the UK, where we had 9 months of lockdown, something like that, so there were periods of time where the golf courses were open but the shops weren't. So we spent that kind of year trying to support those people as best we could. And then
golf course people or what? Because the stores weren't open. And online sales, I guess, right?
Yeah. So supporting the retailers that were able to operate online and those people that in store when they could reopen. So can we go and support them with merchandising or point of sale stuff to help them move through inventory that they've been sat with for a while?
Sitting on for 6 months.
Exactly.
It's all timely. Everything's timely, right? So it's like designs come and go. So it's like if you're stuck with that for 6 months, now what do? Right? You try to sell it. Hopefully it'll buy. I mean, but golf blew up. That's a funny thing, which is like the silver lining. Is like after COVID, like I went to the PGA show last year for the first time, and like it blew my mind. Right? I was like, holy smokes! And then like coming out of it, I was like, oh, it's gonna be a big year for golf. I could just tell. And then COVID hit, and you're like, what the heck? And then it just blew up, like bigger than ever. And I think like it'll never be like that ever again. Like, I mean, you're going to compound it over time, but it's not like you're never going to see like that big of an increase in any sport, right? Like, I just think it's pretty crazy that like, because I think you guys had more restrictions than we did in the United States. Like we were closed, but not really. And then you couldn't like, golf courses were open almost like right away. And then you couldn't ride, you could walk. And so like the walking market exploded in the United States, which was never a market. I mean, it was a market, but no one ever walked. We're all lazy. So we all got carts. But then like we couldn't do carts. So then like, I know this for a fact, but like all the cart companies had no carts left. Like literally everybody sold out like in the first month, like every cart company in the United States. And like, I know this because I talked to them, right? And they told me, and I was like, holy crap. When it comes to everything else, it's like then the shortages start happening. Like, okay, we don't have enough product. So it's like, what's happening here actually is, which is really interesting, is more the secondary market, like for products and stuff like that. Like you can't even get used clubs anymore. Like no one has used clubs. It's crazy. It's so crazy, man. It's crazy.
And the thing we have to do, and it's our responsibility as people within the golf industry, is try and capture all these new people and keep them here, right? We've had this once in a lifetime, or hopefully, touch wood, once in a lifetime event that has brought all of these people into golf. And we've had booms before, sure, but nothing like this. We've got more people now interested in golf from different backgrounds, different ages, different genders that want to come and play golf. We've got a responsibility to make sure they stay. And I think golf is better place than it ever has been to keep those people. Like golf isn't just 18 holes on a Saturday on a golf course.
It's changed. The game has changed. Like I was talking to another brand about this, and they said, they like you have the pulse, right? Like what's really happening, and sales and what's happening, in the world more than I do. And they said, look, dude, the COVID last year, golf went up 25%. Like the amount of golfers went 25%, which is unheard of, right? Like, and they said like, and then over the next 5 years, it's going to be like another 10 or 15% or something like that.
In the UK, it's more than 100%. We had 2.3.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. It's like there's no other way of saying it. It's as obscure as having a virus in 2019 or 2020. Like that's how crazy. Like, and so like he's like, we're talking about capital, and like their company got a ton of capital lately. They're like, there's so much money outside golf that wants to come into golf right now. Like people want in, right? Because they know it's like a booming market, and how the game has changed, because now it's becoming popular. Like it's not just like, oh, an old white guy sport, right? Like it's becoming like, which I always love. That's why I always love like supporting these younger brands, like because like it's inclusive golf essentially. What I found was so interesting is the amount of people that are coming in, and now the amount of new faces in golf. It's becoming a cool thing to do. Before it wasn't cool. It was like, oh, I won't golf with my dad, right? Like, but now it's like, you see famous basketball players playing golf, like not like Michael Jordan, we all know plays golf, but like other players, right? Like, and they're posting on Instagram, like, oh, I'm getting golf lessons with so and so, and it's like, whatever. Steph Curry's really big in golf. Like, all these guys are all into golf, and then you see like like rock bands are starting their own golf companies. Like it's crazy. Like it's becoming cool, and it was never really cool. It was more like it's another sport you can go play. I don't know. I think the time is right, and I think what you guys are doing is like sick. Like, because you already have the foundation, right? Like, you've done it forever. You have cool designs. You have fashion. Like, fashion. You've already been doing it for a million years. You've been doing, like, British fashion, which is even cooler, I think. And then now it's, like, coming to the American market. Like, I think you guys should blow up. Like,
it is a luxurious position to be in, to get to do something so new, and at a time where the opportunity is so big, with everything that's come behind us. So like you say, the logo, the brand, the history, it's a privilege to have that, and to be able to bring it to somewhere almost brand new like the USA that haven't really seen us at all. Some people might have a memory of some players wearing it in the 70s and 80s, which is great, but they've never really seen it or been offered it at the scale that we're going to.
So I guess let me ask you this question to you. Okay, so you have all this old footage, right? Let's call it, of famous golfers wearing your stuff, taking pictures 20 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago, whatever it might have been taken. Can you guys still use that in your campaigns, like, or not really, or it depends on who took the picture if you buy the rights to the picture?
Exactly, the last one. So some of it we definitely can do, because some of it is our content that we did at the time. So at that time, when we were sponsoring people like Greg Norman and Tony Jacklin, like they would give up their time and come and do our catalog. So we've got digital versions of those catalogs from the 50s, 60s, 70s that we can use.
So you own because you took the picture. It's your guys'
exactly.
stuff. But if it's on tour or whatever, then you gotta. If you found something really cool, you'd have to buy the rights to it essentially to use it. I mean,
exactly. But some of the really cool stuff for us is, the image of that's really cool, and Greg Norman holding the claret jug is a great image, but actually the sweater that he's wearing, like the design of it is so cool. We own that. It's ours. We've got the actual jumper. It's hanging downstairs in our office, the one he was wearing whilst he was holding that, and we own those rights because we made the jumper at the time, so we can reimagine those designs
so cool.
as often as we want to.
Like, do you know who Penfold is? Is?
Yeah.
Like, do you know their story and like what's happened with Penfold? Like, it's insane. Like, I'm friends with my friend Gavin is like the guy who kind of started it, with the guy who actually owns the label or owns the brand. And it's like, I had him on the podcast a year ago before he even blew up. But when I learned about I saw what he was doing on Instagram, I'm like, that's cool. And I talked to him and I was like, oh my God, that's the freaking coolest. Like, the story, right? Like, it pretty much just went away. Like, it disappeared off the face of the earth. And like my friend Gavin, like, was watching a James Bond movie, and he was like, what's Penfold? Right? Like, he's British, but he lives in the United States. He's like, what's Penfold? What the hell are they talking about? And he started Googling and trying to figure out where it was. And then all of a sudden it was like this, mystery history, right? And it was like, at some point it just falls off the face of the earth. And then he's like, and then he started doing more research, and after tons of time, he found out the guy who actually owns the rights to Penfold and that's how and then they work together and they started Penfold all over again, like last year. But like, dude, the history and that, like, it's crazy. Like, when would you ever find that? It's like finding a treasure, right? Like, oh, here's a established golf brand for a million freaking years that just died in the 80s, essentially, that like some dude owns in England, that doing, like, I don't know. I think it's so cool.
Well, like the guys at Jones are similar, right? That was a brand that existed for a long time, went away to almost nothing, and now some of the coolest bags in the game.
See, I love iconic stuff. I love like classic golf iconic clothing, players. Like, you can see with like the background. I love, like, which is really, this is not like a green screen. This is real. I love it. I don't know. That's just like our heritage, right? It's the heritage of the game. But these guys are all badasses back then, so it's like, oh, that's cool. But I don't know. I was wondering, like, because I know with Penfold, they have all the James Bond movies and whatever. But I mean, now they're doing, like, I think he just did a collab with James Bond when that new movie came out. I was like, holy shit! Like, I don't know. I just think it's so cool. Like, it is cool. But it's cool. I'm sorry, that's just really cool. And that's why, like, what you guys are doing. So I'm like, that's cool as hell, because you have the history, but you guys really weren't doing anything with it, right? Because you were kind of doing with, like, you probably had a really like mild, golf market industry. Like, okay, we're just doing our thing, but we're mainly focusing on regular, fashion. And then it's like, but you have a history of golf, and it's like, cool, you've been around for a million years. Like, that's, I don't know, like, there's not a lot, there's no American brands that are like that.
That's it. That's the thing that makes us unique. It's interesting when you talk about Penfold, Sean Connery playing Bond at that time. There's obviously the images of him in that film. At the time he's filming that and playing golf, he's wearing Lyle and Scott. We've got the pictures of him wearing.
Really?
Yeah, the crossover.
You started Penfold about that. That's fucking cool. I'm sorry, that's just cool. That's so cool. I didn't even know that. Like, I guess that's probably where I did see the freaking bird. Wasn't the bird on what he's wearing?
The eagle, yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, the bird. But like, I think it's where I saw the logo, and then I saw it again. I'm like, oh, I know this brand. But in your brain, you're like, where have I seen this? Where have I seen this? Oh my god, so cool. So is that sweater thing you're wearing? What is that, sweater or sweatshirt?
Yeah, so this is part of a collaboration we did recently with a Japanese brand called Golfickers. So they're this collective of art directors, filmmakers, designers based in Tokyo. I think they founded in 2018 that love golf, love everything about it. It's a fairly common story now. They love it, but they hate the options of what you had to wear. There was nothing that they wanted to wear, feeling like you have to go and put the golf uniform on to go and play golf. So they started making these Japanese streetwear inspired golfing silhouettes that are just so cool, like that Japanese streetwear cool. But their whole ethos, right, is that they believe golf is an ugly duckling. One day it will become, like the fairy tale, something beautiful like a swan or an eagle, was the way they put it. And when I'm hearing that from them, I'm like, well, that makes the idea of a collaboration really easy. So we kicked that off about a year ago, actually, and we launched it at the beginning of October around the Zozo Championship over in Japan as well, because they do like a curated range of product for that competition. So this was just blending some of their kind of streetwear silhouettes with some of our kind of iconic pieces from the archive. So we did some knitwear, like some Antasia knitwear. We did a rugby shirt like this. We took some of our more modern silhouettes, like a hoodie, like an oversized T-shirt, and released this limited capsule with a number of retailers here in Europe, in the US, and over in Japan as well. So, a little collaboration in the world of golf, which hopefully is an indication of things to come. It's like the world of golf has just discovered that collaboration is possible. You don't have to be scared of the other brands. You can talk to each other and make cool stuff happen. So we hope we can, continue to collaborate with lots of different people over the coming years.
No, it's a cool shirt. I just like, I don't know. It's the uncommon, golf attire. Like seriously, like golf polo shirts are like boring, right? Like a plain old polo shirt, and then Bad Birdie, they blew up in the last 2 years, and they have some really cool like designs on their polo, right? I think people want to see color and they want to see something. I don't know, like I'd wear that thing you're wearing right there. I'd wear that all day long. That thing's cool. I don't know, it reminds me, it's very like 90s ish too. Like that looks like something I'd wear like when I was a kid, right? Or like, I don't know, it just looks cool. Like
we definitely see that kind of more classic, more kind of sartorial way of dressing coming back into golf, and for us that's a huge opportunity because we can just literally throw open the archive to whatever period of time.
You already have a design. It's just like, okay, how can we make this more modern? Or put that spin on it, or that tweet. That's cool.
Yeah, so
I just saw it. Like, that's a cool shirt.
we literally have an archive up in Scotland that has either the products or the designs, the lookbooks, or the instructions for the machines that made the garments.
Was that what made you so excited when you got the job over there? You're like, holy crap! Like they have a lot of stuff. Or did you already know that?
Privilege. When I joined, actually, it was someone's project at the time, so it all existed. It was all just kind of in the corner of a building, and everyone knew this history was there. And it was a young guy's kind of first job as an intern here to kind of sort
catalog it,
properly archive it. And he went through and did an amazing job categorizing everything. It's all digitally, labeled now, so we can go and find it. And for like the design team downstairs, like it's an amazing tool. They literally go, okay, the reference for this year or the period of time that's really cool is the early 70s.
Did you totally do collections on that whole thing? Like, oh, we call it the 72 collection, right? And or whatever. And you could like retake that whole collection and make it a little bit more modern, but still make it look like from the 70s. And like,
we literally did that this year for, I think it was 1986. We did some stuff in golf we made a collection, a little capsule around Greg Norman. So we did these beautiful kind of intarsia knitwear pieces with these check designs. We've re-released them in the fashion side of our business, all inspired by golf. So it's coming full circle now. Golf was the first thing, and then we went to fashion, and now we're coming back to golf. But they're all still inspiring each other. So even now, the fashion part of our business, which is by far the biggest bit, is being inspired by what we used to do in golf, which used to be the big bit. So the two things are going really nicely together.
So are you doing just for the sports? Are you doing just the golf, your job, or are you doing like everything? Like what's the breadth of the sports that you guys do?
Yeah, we have the fashion side, then we have sportswear, which has kind of two arms to it. It has a sports style section, which is kind of fashion-led sportswear pieces, kind of on that athleisure trend. And then we have
which is huge.
Yeah, massive now. And then we have
there's like half the things on your website I'd wear. Like I can see it right now. I wear that. Sorry.
And then we have a venture section of sportswear, which is all about kind of outdoor sports, kind of tying back into period of our history when we were making garments in Scotland, where we were making really technical outerwear and knitwear pieces. So that's kind of how we tie back to that part of our history. And then we have the golf section, which is separate to all of those. So my remit is the golf section of our business. So growing and developing that here in the UK and Europe, and also launching into the US and with our partners in the rest of the world. So places like South Africa, Japan, and South Korea.
Dude, I know that Japan's like massive right now. Golf is like beyond. It's like the thing to do. You can't even find a tee time there, like at all. Like I know that. That's what I'm told.
Yeah, and they have kind of reversed the trend with golf in Japan. So they were seeing a steady decline in golf for a long period of time, and like they have an aging population anyway, but an aging population, particularly in golf, where the average golfer was getting older and older and older, and it's getting less accessible for younger people in Japan. And they, the guys we work with over there report that, we've seen a shift in the pandemic. You've seen it in the US, but they've seen a huge change in Japan and South Korea with people and young people going into golf, which is just transformative. There were, people.
There's so many like little niches in golf right now that people could just focus on that one little part of golf when it comes, either it's a fashion, accessory, whatever, right? Equipment. They're like, you could just be that guy who makes like not the same as the big boy, but like whatever your inspired design is, and that's still going to blow up because like golfers are not used to seeing new stuff. They're used to seeing the same thing, paint a different color every year, right?
There's so much room. Yeah, golf is not. It feels sometimes like it's saturated because you've got these massive companies that feel like they dominate, but there's so much room for new.
But they don't. You think they do? Yeah, they dominate equipment and they try to do everything. Though they're like going to the mall, right? Like they do everything. They make everything. And it's like, but if you make everything, you can't be good at one thing, right? So it's like, I think that's anything. If you're spread too thin, you just kind of do it. I mean, don't get me wrong, they're billion-dollar companies. It's just that, like, do they really know what's going on? Like they have, I don't know. Are they hip enough? I guess the better way of saying it. Or are they just very staunchy? I'm not gonna say the brand, but one time I talked to this brand, and they're a club manufacturer. It's really big, and they literally told me, no shit, like they said, we'd love to. This is what the person told me. We would love to work with you, but we can't. And it's not you, it's us. That's what the person told me. I was like, and I said, are we breaking up? Because I feel like we're in high school and we're breaking up because it was perfectly said. And that's what some people go like, oh, who have you worked with? I'm like, well, I've worked with the big brands, because I haven't, because I mean, I review their stuff. I don't go to get it from them because they're different. But like, I just think it's cool. I've seen in the last 3 years, like, brands just explode. Like, you would never expect, like, really? They're making 7-8 figures a year. I'm like, how? But it's like, because they have their finger, they know what's going on. They know what's cool. I don't know. Golf's changed. Here's the other thing, dude. There's a lot of new golfers, like brand new golfers that never played before. Like, and there's also a lot of people that like just played it, but they didn't play all that much, and now they're addicted to it again. So they're like totally into it. You guys are like Penfold, but a way better position than Penfold was, because Penfold was like starting from scratch. You guys have been around forever, and you guys never went anywhere. And it's like, you already have a market, you already have designs, you already have a team. Like, it's just like, hey, we're going to really do this now in golf, and we're going to focus on bringing cooler stuff. And I think that's the one hard part with fashion and apparel, is that like, you can make new cool designs and stuff, but like, you're limited. Like you were saying before, you got to be so far out that like, if you don't have the capital or the team, then you are literally just doing it. Your drops are like, 2 months in advance or 3 months in advance, not a year and a half. And I don't know. I've learned a lot too. Just from you today, I learned a lot more, but like, that's what I've learned in the last year. Like, apparel is very hard. So hard. It's the hardest thing.
If you think as a business, so you take into account the fashion, sports, and the golf, we've got 130 people that work full time on this, and it's still really hard to do, and we don't get it right all the time. Like, I admire these
5-10 dudes trying to do it. It's like, come up with like cool clothes. It's like, good luck with that. Like,
and manage the production and the logistics and get it here on time,
and the marketing, and you have the money, and they're probably doing it on the side. Like, they're probably have a full-time job doing something else. Like, it can happen. It's just hard. It's a lot harder than people think it is. I mean, that's in my opinion for apparel. Now, for other parts of golf, I think it could be different. Like, you can buy whatever you want, Alibaba, but like, it's still all crap. So
to do apparel properly, design it from scratch, get it made from scratch, not buying something and putting a logo on it, it's really hard to do.
It's so past that. Like, that's the first part of the job, right? That's like, other part of the job is like selling it, and now you're into it for X dollars, right? That one product. Yeah, I don't know. I have a lot of respect for that, and I think it's cool that you guys. I didn't know you guys were that far out. I had no idea. I'm not trying to be ignorant. I just didn't know. I figured. But I guess I saw it when I was at the PGA show. You see these buyers, and like, people like, I didn't know what a buyer was. I didn't really a fashion buyer. So you look down the floor and you're seeing like people doing deals across the table, right? With all the swatches and all the, and I'm like, what's that? I'm like, oh, they're just doing deals. I'm like, that's crazy. They still do that? Like, so are you guys gonna have a big booth at the PGA show, or what are you guys gonna do?
Yeah, so we're just kind of finalizing what that looks like now. We want to bring some of we do trade shows all the time on the fashion side of the business, like Pitti in Italy or Bread and Butter in Germany. So we want to take some elements of that, the kind of exciting way of showing product and having kind of trade stands, and bring that to the PGA show, which if you've been, it's an amazing show because the scale of it is just absolutely vast, and everything in golf.
This is what I heard from somebody, and I don't know if this is true or not, because I've been on the fence about going this year or next year or whatever. They said it's like, even though they're like making it sound like it's gonna be really big, like it's not gonna be as big as it was in the past. That's what I was told. Like, it's gonna be like 40% of the size it was before, which is like, oh, it's not as much. But dude, I think it's a square mile. So now it's a half mile. I mean, come on, like, it's all in perspective, right?
It's all relative. We want to bring some of that stuff that we do in fashion into the world of golf, show that perhaps you don't just need to fill a trade show stand full of product and tables to write orders on. It can be a bit more engaging.
You gotta be cool. You gotta have a cool booth. You gotta have a cool like vibe to it.
Exactly.
And you gotta be like, you gotta bring people into it by that. Not like, oh look, we have all our like row after row of clothes on hangers. Like, nobody cares about that. Like, just show us your main stuff, but show us like who you guys are, right? Like, that's what I always felt like. When I went to the PGA show, I spent most of my time hanging out in the True Link Square booth, and all I had was like a trailer. Like, that's what it was. And like, like people hanging out on couches and chilling. It was like crazy. Like, it's so weird. I can't even describe it. It's almost like surreal, the atmosphere. Like, you would never. Who are they sitting next to? What's his name? John Ashcroft, Ashworth, right? The Ashworth brand. Like, I was sitting like next to him on a couch, and I didn't even know who he was, right? I mean, I knew who he was afterwards. I was like, holy shit, Like, and then, but it's just like everybody knows each other, and it's like, oh yeah, we're all just hanging out, having drinks, chilling.
That's the beauty of it. But like you talk about being far in advance, like that show is too late. If we took orders of that show and only placed orders with our suppliers off the back of that show to deliver it in July, there's no chance.
There's no way.
No chance. So like we've already bought the stock before we go there hoping to sell it, but you can't be like maybe when the world was normal, you'd have enough time, but nowadays, no chance. We have to place orders now to deliver them in July. Like we've not even shown our this high summer range to people yet, and we've already bought it in the hope that we're going to sell it. Like that's how far advanced we have to work. The risk is really, really significant.
Yeah, I mean it is, right? Because if you don't sell it now, but you gotta sell it. I'm not like you gotta definitely sell it.
It's it's always a balance,
but it still lets the risk. It's not you're going into it knowing you have sales. Like, oh, it's guaranteed. Like we know people always buy X, right? It's like every season you have a different design.
You've got lots of history that informs what you do, and you've got enough kind of trend analysis to say what you think might happen. But like that's it's almost a boring bit of the business. But the thing that perhaps worries me when I see new brands come along, they get this amazing exciting buzz when they launch something. What are you going to do with the stuff that doesn't sell? What's your next channel?
Yep, but they also don't know. There's no guarantees, right? So like they think they're going to sell it. They're very excited about it. They think it's cool, and it could be the coolest thing in the world. But like if people don't buy it because they don't know about it or whatever the reason is, now you're stuck with a bunch of crap forever.
If you buy 100 and you sell 65 at full price, that's a really good result. Like that's perfect. That's what you should look to achieve. What are you going to do with those 35? They can't just sit in your garage for the next 10 years. You need a
sales page where all your shit that no one buys sits there. It's like no one's gonna buy that stuff. I mean,
it's the ugly
that's the thing too. Like you look at Banana Republic, right? I used to buy Banana Republic all the time. Now I'm just annoyed by them because all they do is like they're always it's like they're the brand that has like everything's on sale all the time, 40% off. But all they're doing is jacking up the price and cutting 40% and going back to what it would have been prior to. And then they go, oh, friends and family or some bullshit crap, and it's like, oh, an extra 20% off. Like they're just giving you a 20% off coupon they would have given you anyway. So it's like, oh, we're giving you 60% off. It's like they're just playing with the number, right? But then at the end, but their sales, like it's always like end of season, or not. They call it whatever it is. Yeah, I think it's bullcrap.
And you have to strike that balance, right, of making full price sales, which is what everybody wants to do because it's what makes.
It's not always going to happen.
Sexy, but you've got to be responsible with the stock that you're buying to keep your business going without damaging your brand perception.
And you have to do a year in advance.
Yeah,
right. It's not like, oh, I'm going to come up with a thing, a doodad, and it's like if they buy it, cool. If they don't, I'm only out a little bit. It's like, no, dude, you have a whole collection. Multiply it by how many sizes. Like I was talking to somebody who's a golf glove company, and the same problem, right? It's like golf gloves, same issue. When you buy a golf glove, you can't just buy one size, right? You got to buy a small, medium, large, extra large, and you have cadet sizes. Next thing you know, your order's twice the size as it was for one glove that you may or may not even sell. And it's like, oh, we sell half of them. Now we do the other half. I mean,
this the game.
The trash. I mean, I don't even know. Go to Goodwill. Charity.
Yeah, these are the challenges we face, but it's what we get paid to do.
Well, I think it's cool because I think what you guys are like, honestly, man, I think what you have going on, you guys are gonna be big. Like, I mean, you already are big. I'm not trying to like be like, oh yeah, no. I think like you already have the road in front of you. It's just that you guys need to like come across the ocean really and be like, hey, we're here. So what's your plan? Like, where do you guys want to sell in the United States? Like in all the big retailers? Or are you trying to go like country clubs or what?
So we'll have, we kind of use the model that we have in the UK and elsewhere. We kind of have 3 tiers of product. We have good, better, and best. And that kind of defines where they get sold. So we will have, we have a premium product and we have a premium distribution as a result of it. So we'll be working with premium clubs and resorts, and then retailers, be that bricks and mortar or digital, that are used to selling premium brands. So so long as they have adjacencies, the likes of J. Lindeberg, Grayson, Polo, like if they've got experience selling brands of that nature, then
it's no big deal for them.
Exactly. It kind of, they're used to selling premium products like ours. They tell a story really well. They understand what goes, the time and effort that goes into product like these. We're not selling a shiny polo shirt for $19.99. They understand the difference between those two things. Yeah, that's where we'll be selling. So yeah, all over really.
Are most of your sales right now online, like for your brand, or is it kind of half and half? Or
so we are a wholesale business primarily. So we have our own e-commerce platform. You have to, obviously.
We
have a fledgling,
essentially.
Yeah, we have a fledgling retail business here in the UK and some flagship stores in Europe, so mainly in Holland and in Sweden. But the majority of our business, about 85%, comes from wholesale. So that's us selling to retailers for them.
You're the designer. I mean, that's really cool. So then, like your online stuff, do you like sell through other online retailers like Trendy Golf and like stuff like that?
Yeah. So yeah, we know the guys at Trendy really well. We've got a great relationship with them here in the UK.
Because they're already over there with you guys.
Yeah. So yeah, we proud to work with those guys and on both UK and the US side.
Are you guys looking to do more collaborations too with other golf brands?
Definitely, yeah. So we've got a couple of really exciting bits lined up for kind of the next year. So we're now looking at what we would be doing for probably the late half of 2022 or the beginning of 2023. That's the reality nowadays of how long a collaboration.
Everyone's busy. It's like, oh, you want to do a collab? Okay, well, we're both busy. So when are we gonna do it, and what are we gonna do it on? Like when I did my collaboration, dude, it was like, and it was only for one accessory, and it was like 9 months before they even launched it.
If you think, you want to start from scratch and design a garment, say from, put it on paper, go through all the steps of properly prototyping it, testing it, making sure it's compliant, making sure it fits properly, making sure you can make it you're talking a year minimum. You can rush it faster, but the risk is really high. If you want to do it properly, it takes at least a year.
Yeah, because if it's garbage and it rips or like it's not, doesn't fit right. Now you're all you have all other kinds of problems now you have to deal with, not just it doesn't fit some guy. That's cool. I love the collabs. I was like when two brands do stuff like, well, you did that collab with a Japanese company. That looks kind of sick. So.
Yes. So that was that kind of second collaboration we did it recently in golf. We worked with Malbon in 2019. We did some again like archive inspired pieces of kind of knitwear.
Dude, Malbon's looks so big right now.
Yeah,
Malbon was huge 4 years ago. I mean, I could see Malbon turning almost into like another like Travis Matthews if he ever wanted to, or like it's gonna be such a big cool big company that they're gonna get bought out. Like someone's gonna try to. I don't know if he will or not. But I could see like he'd be targeted, right? Let's put it that way, by like a big, like here's my opinion. Like with Travis Matthews, like same thing. Like Callaway bought him out, right? 2 years ago, whatever that was. I don't know. I just like seeing. It's crazy when you see that. You're like, oh, you're doing something right. Well, that's cool, man. I'm excited for you guys. I think you guys have some really awesome design stuff that is going to blow up in just a matter. And what you guys, I think it'll be a different conversation like a year from now, and you guys are going to be like, "Oh yeah, wow, that's." I remember I was talking to them when they were about to come over here. Even though you're, it's a weird conversation because you guys are already around. It's just more like, hey, we're not really pushing it in the United States, and we're about to push it in the United States. But I think you guys are going to like do really well in the United States.
It would be good to have this conversation in a year's time. So we would be 4 months having.
When you're when you're working at a pub and you're all sad. You're like, oh yeah, I thought this thing was gonna happen, and now I'm just a bartender. And I'm like, it's okay. I'm just kidding. Oh man. Well, I'm excited. I think where can people find you guys online so they can check you guys out? So they can see I'm not full of crap. Like that's actually cool.
So the website is lyleandscott.com, and then we're on all the social media platforms at Lyle and Scott.
Cool. Well, I think we'll be having a different conversation a year from now, and I think that like I'm excited to do some stuff with you guys because I think you guys. I mean, I don't say this to everybody. Like, I think your clothes actually look cool and I'd wear it. Sometimes I get stuff and I'm like, I'll never wear that in a million years, right? And then I'm like, well, that's cool. I'd wear that. Oh, I'd wear that. So it's like almost like a classy, cool vibe, if that makes sense. Like you could probably wear that to work kind of clothes, and it's still modern. You can go to the pub or like go to a bar or go hang out with your family or whatever. I don't know. I'll give you an example. It's like True Links or shoes, right? I can wear them at the golf course, or I can wear them to work. Or I can wear them out when I go out here. It's like I just think you guys have that kind of style. Like it's not like, oh, that's a polo shirt. We're only to the golf course. Right?
Yeah, you absolutely nailed it. That's like everything we do it's golf lifestyle. Like there are brands that do the performance side of golf really, really well. And we're going to leave them to it. If you're selling on the technical features, the specs, that's not necessarily what.
Yeah, I think that's not us. Like we're gonna make a cool ass shirt that's comfortable, that looks cool. and it's used like it's functional. We're not gonna make you like the fancy ass Gore-Tex, blah blah blah. You know, maybe we do that or not. I don't really know. But I'm saying, like, I think
for me, it's like I go through like the gas station check. Would I be comfortable getting out of my car on the way home from golf to go into the shop and not feel like I'm wearing?
I'm being looked at like, what the hell are you wearing?
Exactly. As long as you're comfortable doing that, then we're doing something right.
Well, that's the problem too with polos, right? Like everything's like those new polos that are skin ass tight that like you know are supposed to like help you keep you cool and whatever. But like you can't wear that to work. Like you can't wear that. Like, dude, you never wear that to work. I don't care if you're the buffest dude in the world. Like, like for reals. You know, it's like it's made for a purpose, right? And it's like, but then also like you get those heavy ass ugly polos that are like, you know, circa polo brand 1992 thick ass material. You know, it's like, okay, I can wear it to work, but would I wear that out in public? My family probably not. I've been playing golf. Well, maybe it's not like hot outside, you know, because it's heavy cotton. And it's like I don't know. It's like it's that in between. It's like
striking that balance is. Hard, but that's what we got to do. That's what we're doing.
Well, cool. Thank you for being on the show today. I appreciate it. And you guys need to check out, you know, Lyle and Scott. I think, you know, obviously they're already pretty big in overseas, but I think they're gonna be big in the US. Thank you for being on the show. Let's do this again sometime.
Look forward to it. Thanks, Paul.
All right, cool. I'll see you on the next episode, guys.
Thanks for listening to another episode of Behind the Golf Brand Podcast.
You're gonna beat me at golf?
Stay connected on and off the show by visiting golfersauthority.com. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment.
Golf is always more fun when you win.
Stay out of the beach and see you on the green.